And we're on. Welcome to Coffee Talk. This is episode 5. Tonight we are going to go in depth into our last investigation offsite at a private residence that we were contacted about. Tonight with me, I'm David, by the way, in case you don't remember who I am. We've got Justin and Courtney over here. You remember them from last time and the time before. And we have Hannah Dobick. She is one of the owners of the home that we investigated, and actually who the young lady who reached out to us back in September, right? About getting together and doing this. So back in September, we were supposed to have my realtor and friend Chris Timmons from the Timmons Group. He was unable to join us this evening, but he called and he was very sorry that he couldn't. But he's the one that actually coordinated all this between Hannah and myself. And so, it started out very simply. He asked if we wanted to get into a house that had a lot of reported activity and had never had a investigation done at it. Of course, I said yes. And when he gave me the address, one of the first, and you'll find many of these throughout this story tonight, one of the first coincidences that might have been off-putting was when I looked up the address. This had been a house that was on the way to my dad's that I had commented on for years and years and years as I drove up to him, to his house, that I always wanted to go into for whatever reason, even before I was investigating with the group or anything like that. I was kind of drawn to the house. So I told him that, in fact, yes, I would present it to the group. I thought it would be a great idea. And when I presented it to the group and I gave the address and I described what house it was, Justin was one that knew immediately what house it was, again. And Andrew, one of our group members, he was another one that had said, I always want to investigate in that house, and he didn't know why. So at this point we had, and I told you this the first time I talked to you, that we had 3 guys that were kind of drawn to this house, that knew about it and that were drawn to it. So that was the beginning. We agreed that yes, we would take a look at it. And so we started the process, in case you don't know the process that we go through when it comes to doing the house or doing residentials like this. We typically interview the residents or whomever is contacting us. So that's when Chris and Hannah and myself got together on Facebook. Thanks to Facebook. That was a long Facebook conversation. And, you have standard questions that you ask. You ask, you want to get into history and potentially disqualifying stuff, like if there was any trauma, if there was any long-standing things going on there. And when Hannah and I first started talking, you started relaying some of the experiences that you had in the past with the house. So can you give us a couple of those experiences?
Okay, where do you start? Well, when we first moved there, it seemed pretty normal. Like we had a lot of really exciting ideas for like decorating and stuff. I was kind of in my Tim Burton stage, so I was doing bright red, bright purple, bright green rooms. Had a really fun atmosphere. And then about 4 months into living there, the atmosphere kind of started to change. I found myself getting kind of very flustered easily. I couldn't think very clearly. I would get tired very easily. And then I started to hear things when I knew I was the only person home. I had 2 toddlers at the time. So between the activity with the kids and just the animals acting crazy for no reason sometimes, I just started to realize I probably wasn't alone in the house. And then things started disappearing. One time I was feeding my kids dinner and I could hear someone walking around upstairs, like very loudly while they were trying to eat. And I knew that my ex-husband wasn't home yet. So things like that where you should have been alone, but you weren't alone. And I never experienced a good night's sleep in that house from the entire time I lived there. Which was about 5 years. I used to have to sleep with a sleep mask on and earplugs in because it was near the highway. And I specifically remember the first time that I really knew that we were not alone in that house. I was taking a nap, and I had the sleep mask pulled over my face, and I felt someone walk over to the bed and press right like that on my nose and wake me up. And I pulled up the mask because I thought it was my kids. And I went to like basically scold them. I pulled up the mask and I said, "My gosh, I'm just trying to take a nap." And there was nobody there. And then I found out that they weren't even home. So it was like slowly kind of like these weird little annoyances that started to happen, that kind of transformed into larger things like my car would break down for no reason. Some mornings I would get up and feel like I had to throw up. And then probably the scariest thing that ever happened, I saw a black hooded figure standing at the foot of my bed one night. It woke me up out of a sound sleep. I was sleeping and I felt this presence like basically leaning over me, and I opened my eyes and it stood up and stood back at the foot of the bed, and it was about 8 feet tall. And I remember being like extremely afraid, but I couldn't like scream, I couldn't move. And then it walked around the bed and into what was my kids' room. And at first I was afraid to tell anyone about it because I thought that I was losing my mind. At that point, we had lived at the house about 2 years. And it had been little things, and then all of a sudden this thing happened, and I didn't really say anything about it for a while. And then my dad came to visit me about 6 months later, and he said, he's like a very Christian, Jesus believes in like, prophetic meaning to things and stuff. And he said that he saw a dark hooded figure with no face sitting at the front of the house on where the recessed door is.
Right. Okay. So one of the things about this house, and we're going to go into it here in a little bit more, is one of the most distinguishing characteristics of that house was the front door. The front door was recessed. If you, when we show you the pictures, you'll see how it sits recessed about 5 feet back until you get to the actual door. And that's the thing that had caught my attention driving by it.
Thick stone slab, like almost like what you would call like a bloodstone.
Okay. Yeah.
Very old. It's from like a local quarry.
Okay. Yeah. It was one big piece. Again, you'll see when we get into the pictures, especially in the basement, you'll see that it actually is one big piece in the front. All right. So that's the preview of the house. The beginning portion of this. We had this long conversation, and so I decided to go out and take some pictures. I took about 90. The very next day, I went out and took about 90 pictures just along the outside of the house. Walked all around, took pictures from every angle I could. So I'm gonna stop right there, and I just realized that I didn't introduce where we were or what's going on here. So we're at the Metropolis Collective here in Mechanicsburg. So there is the information, the Facebook page. This is a fantastic art gallery and music venue. So come on down, check these guys out. It's a fantastic space. Hannah is an artist. She has art displayed here. She also works here. And the art that you see surrounding us, with the exception of the picture of the house, the art, this wonderful piece behind us, behind Hannah right here, is hers, as is the picture behind us that's got kind of a glare from the light on it that you can't really see how fantastic it is. But what's the name of this one? This was the one that was inspired by the house, yes?
This painting is called River Woman. So I used to have dreams about a woman who is trying to escape by swimming through the river. This particular house is right on the Susquehanna River, across the highway. And I don't know, I used to have dreams about this woman, and I think she was a real woman. So I finally decided to paint her one day, and the painting was very intense. I think I cried through half of it, but you can't really see it from the camera, but she has birds in her hair and like twigs and like birds' nests, and then there's moons and some distant planets and stuff. It's got a very celestial, kind of otherworldly feeling, but I feel like she may have been attached to the house. But it took me about 10 years to actually decide to paint it, because just a lot of emotions attached to that piece. So.
And we have our first comment here from
Lenny
Len.
Van, she's somebody I went to school with.
Okay. So she says that she has seen the very same, this very same black hooded figure at the foot of her bed.
Yeah, no face. Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, about 8 foot tall. During the time, a couple that that you and she went to school with,
Yes.
they were going through the end stage of their marriage and living with them. A lot of strife,
Yep.
fighting.
Yeah.
You know, again, much like what you described.
Yeah.
And your story made her hair stand up.
Yes, I still can't believe I saw that. I've never seen it again. But what I was saying about my dad, I had never told him that I had seen that. So when he told me that he saw it at the front of the house, I knew that I wasn't crazy. Like, it was something that was definitely there. And that really weirded me out. And I went on a rampage and I threw out half of my paintings, half of my books. I had a lot of like dark comics. I went through this crazy like cleansing stage and threw anything out that might have some crazy evil entity attached to it. I mean, I've always collected antiques. I've always collected like religious items. And it freaked me out so much that I just threw everything away. And when I think about all the cool stuff I threw out, I like can't even deal with myself. But that's how much it affected me. So we were starting to fight a lot at that point. So maybe there's something to that.
Maybe there is a connection. Now you said
Very possible.
About, we mentioned you being an artist, and you had a studio in the house as well.
I did. It was in the hallway area, right behind that recessed door.
Okay. And you told me the story about the painting, the first painting or one of the painting you were compelled to paint.
Yes.
While you were there.
Did you want to go into like some of the science behind that, or you want me to just explain it first?
Explain it first, and then we'll go into.
Okay. So when I moved into that house, I was kind of very much like a hobby artist. I didn't really call myself an artist. It was just something I liked to do. And while I was living there, I found myself basically having to paint to deal with the emotions, the feelings, the intensity of that place. And the first painting I did there was a really simple, like a spiral. It was a silver background, and it was purple and blue and black. And it was just a very like simple shape of a spiral. And I just found myself standing in front of that painting and like going around and around and around. And I would work on it a little bit, and then I would like go get my kids up from a nap, and we'd go somewhere, and I'd come back and I'd work on it some more. And it was like, had almost like a very hypnotic feeling to it. And then I wound up putting it in my bedroom, just kind of to fill something. I mean, the house had really high ceilings, so I was always like looking for ways to fill the space. Like certain rooms felt emptier than other ones. So I hung it above my bed, and didn't really think anything of it. But a friend of mine later, who was into like metaphysical stuff, she came to visit me one day, and she said that she sensed that there was a vortex in that building, that like the land and everything. And she took a pendulum out of her pocket and like started walking around different parts of the house. And I had never seen a pendulum
Somebody use a pendulum
before. All that stuff was kind of very much on the periphery of what I was interested in. So she pulled it out of her pocket and she just held it out, and the thing was going like this. And I was like, "You're moving your arm." And she's like, "No, I'm not moving my arm. Like, touch my arm." And I touched it, and she wasn't moving it. So there was definitely like some spiraling energy in that particular room where I had hung that painting. So it was like a weird subconscious kind of a synchronicity going on there.
Okay.
But I looked into it later, and there's definitely like ley lines.
Yep.
All around the property. There's a lot of like, there's water on two sides of it, which also can affect a level of activity in a house. So
right. Well,
it was a perfect storm.
In the research portion for us, we found, when I showed you guys on the map where I marked where the house was, and there's an intersection of two ley lines that's about 1.5 miles down the road, actually in the middle of the river, and like on that side of the river. So like you're in there to where you have a kind of a power. You're coming to a point, with the intersection of the ley lines. So we got into all this during that initial interview, and so I was incredibly interested, and Again, it was a very much a ability to, or not the ability, but like a calming thing for you. Like, okay, you're not crazy. We
Yes, it was
believe
very
what
validating.
what you're saying.
Right, because I had a whole group of people telling me that I was the only person that heard things, sensed things, felt things. And then come to find out later, much later, my daughter and I started talking about it a couple years ago, and she was seeing things, hearing things as a little girl and never told me.
Right. And
so we were both going through this alone,
right,
but together.
And then later on, I found out that, through another female, and you'll see throughout this story, like the focus this has on females, when Courtney shares her experience.
That was the whole aspect of it.
So that was the end of our initial Facebook interview, and we scheduled an interview for the end of October, for a couple of weeks later in October, to actually come in face-to-face with you. But I went and I took the pictures. So you're probably wondering what the house looks like. This is an artist rendering of the house over here.
In the 1950s.
From the 1950s in the wintertime. So if that gives you an idea, we're going to run some pictures of what the house looks like now. So this is the house. So this is the front of the house. It's an amazing, it's an amazing
yes, it is.
house. It's amazing. It's a great piece of property. It's in a, it's in a pretty good state of disrepair. It's being remodeled. It's trying to be fixed. But this tree to the left or to the right is very important. It will play a big part in the story. But these were the pictures that Missy, our group owner, and she is, she's very sensitive to a medium, and she got some really intense feelings when it came to this place, and especially this tree. So that's the front of the house. Go ahead, the next picture. This is the back of the house. Like I said, when I speak of the disrepair,
it did not look like that when I was there. We were really trying to work on it.
But this gives you an idea of the scale of the house and how big the house is. So if you go ahead to the next picture. All right. So as you came in the door, this is the living room. This was during our investigation. This was our gathering area, least kinetic room that we felt. So this was where all of our equipment was staged. And this is where we broke to. So like when our groups ended, or our segments ended, we would come back here and discuss what we did. So in the next picture, this next picture is the foyer, and this is Hannah's old, this is the...
unrecognizable.
Right. This is the old foyer. This is her old studio. Yeah. What you're looking at right in front of there, it was the front door. It's now boarded up.
Yep, I used to get groped in there by something that wasn't in the room. I'd just be painting and be like, wait a minute, it's 3 a.m.
The floor right there becomes important during our investigation, because that you can actually see into the basement through the floor in this room. So the next slide is going to be the stairs. The stairs, incredibly active. Again, foreshadowing, because we get stories coming up about it. Next. This is Ivy's old room. This is Hannah's daughter's room. This becomes a focal point again when it comes to maybe not so much our investigation. My initial investigation when I was there with my friend Sonny, not so much. We didn't get so much in this when we were there as the group. Then the next picture is Hannah's room, and this is the room. That wall above the bed right there is where the painting was hung, where the vortex painting was hung. The perspective that we're at right now is effectively where the hooded figure stood when Hannah woke up to him and walked out. And this was far and away, I think, during our investigation, the most active room.
Yes,
I was just sad. I know all some of these details, and that's exactly where I got all.
Yes, that's where I felt something.
The majority of my personal activity was right there, and I didn't know about the painting.
I heard whispers in my ear when I was sleeping. Like I heard so many things, and I literally thought I was losing my mind.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then
not you losing your mind.
No, it's cool now that I don't live there. It's
to know that.
It's cool that now I can sleep now.
This is in case you haven't noted, in case you can't tell, the house is built effectively in a circle.
It's a circle house.
It's a circle. And then, so this is the bathroom that's actually under the stairs. Has a great copper tub in it. I actually jumped into that tub the night we were there for our full investigation. Because I don't know, I have a thing about tubs. Now this room here is actually where when Sunny and I were there, she got a very cloying feeling that there was something bad had happened in this room. That something we got a lot of REM pod activity. Ivy is letting us know that she feels the exact same way. Ivy's here, like Hannah's eldest daughter is here. She's behind the camera.
I got off work.
So she's helping us out as well. But this is the small bathroom downstairs, and then beyond it is a small hallway. We go down the hallway, and you go to the right, and it'll be the next picture. It'll be the kitchen. In the fantastic kitchen, look at the tile on the floor.
I loved that kitchen. When we bought it, the whole house was carpeted, including the kitchen.
Mm.
So we put that floor in. Their dad put that floor in. So
And
I think it looks amazing.
instead of just continually referring to him as your ex, is John?
Yes.
John. Okay. So and this is the fireplace that she spoke of. It's a fantastic grand fireplace. You can actually get into it and stand up, which is what I did.
Yeah,
I'm surprised I didn't get attacked by a bat, but
You were.
I was not. I'm surprised I was not attacked by a bat.
I actually was bit by a bat in that house.
Well, I wish I'd have known that before my
I forgot to
dumb
relay
ass
that
stuck my head up
detail,
the chimney.
I wouldn't have stopped.
Yep.
No, it wouldn't have stopped me anyway. It's to the left of the fireplace right there. That's a very small pantry, but that's one where we got a lot of really weird feelings too.
Yes.
While we were there, we couldn't get my first night there that I'll get into here in a few minutes. We couldn't get the door to stay closed.
So I think that closet used to be an outdoor staircase, and I think it was like where the help that was there.
Okay.
Oh,
That
okay.
was the servants would use that.
Okay.
But the staircase has been removed and it was turned into a closet. I think that's what.
I know there was a lot of beer bottles in there.
Yes, there was. Well, that's what he does now.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's a brewing room upstairs.
Yep.
So, okay, if you go to the next picture, that's the second floor. So the stairs go up and turn, and you have a small staircase up to the second floor.
Right.
This was one of the most active areas
Yep.
for me during my first trip there. And like I said, when we get into that, I'll tell you more about that. But if we go up into here, that's directly out of the doorway. That's the small bathroom across the hall. Go ahead. That's looking down the hall towards the immediate left is going to be the stairs to the attic.
I am totally getting goosebumps looking at these pictures.
To the immediate left, the open door is the first bedroom, and the door in front of us is an L-shaped bedroom in the front. So if you go to the next, this is I kind of counted this as the master bedroom. This has a suspended bed. The bed is built actually from the ceiling down. And that was this was one of the more active rooms. It was one of the more kind of interesting rooms that we saw. And the mirror over the bed has a special meaning to us because later on, after we're jumping around in the time frame here, but later on, after all of our interviews and such, Hannah and I continued to talk, and she sent me a picture of the mirror that hung between the windows in Ivy's room that Ivy would report a woman named Gertie would come out of and like in full figure and come and sit in her crib with her. And Hannah had related that she thought it was lost to time. And I saw it. I'm like, no, I've seen this mirror before. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's hanging over the unique bed in the master bedroom. And
Pretty freaking unique.
and of course, like when I showed it to her, what was your response?
I think it was a lot of exclamation marks and some like question marks and yelling over text. Because I literally thought that mirror was gone, and there it is. And I don't know that the owner of the house now knows what is in that mirror. My daughter, and I found this story out later. And there's a whole thing attached to this painting. We got this painting through an artist that shows at this gallery that just so happened her husband used to live in this house in the 50s. And we did not know this until we started talking. So when he went to meet with his mother, she gave him this painting, and that's how I got this. But anyway, back to the mirror. What was I talking about? When the woman came and brought us this painting, my daughter and I were talking about the house, and that's when I found out that there was a woman that used to come out of her mirror at night, and she described her as having a long white dress and flowers in her hair, right? And she would come over to the bed and watch her sleep. And I never knew this, that she was going through this, or seeing these things, until this woman came and brought the painting, and we started talking about the house.
Now,
So that she was like 14 when I found that out.
now,
So
Ivy, you said that this was never threatening or anything like that. It was
No.
more of a comforting presence.
Very maternal energy.
Okay. So while we were here, again, I'm jumping around the timeline now, but while we were here doing the face-to-face interview, myself and Jerry and Melissa, and you were here, you produced a picture because the house you thought was connected in some way to the philanthropic family downtown.
okay, so I have there are a few big families in Harrisburg. This house was built by one of the bachelors, either the McAdam family or the McCormick family. And I think it might be the McCormick family, but I'm not positive, and I haven't done my research yet. But when I went to a show at the Art Association in Harrisburg, they had a massive portrait of Gertrude McCormick. And when I saw it, I was like, wait a minute, like Gertrude, like Gertrude? So when I sent the photo to Ivy, I took a picture of the painting and I sent it to her, and she said, that looks a lot like her. So I don't know if there's a connection. I mean, it seemed like very weird to be coincidental. But
Right, and especially with a name like Gertie and Gertrude.
right. I've never heard that name before.
So again, this is another picture of that bedroom with the suspended bed. The legs you see under the bed right there are actually table legs. There's a table slid under that bed as it sits right there. So-
I don't know.
Next slide. Okay, so this is out the front. This is out the door and to the left. Now these bedrooms are L-shaped, so they come out to the front of the house and wrap around the
they're
front.
very awkward shaped
They're
rooms.
they weren't there before.
Okay.
He added them.
He added the bedrooms?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So they came out and they come around the front of the house and they meet at the bathroom. So the bathroom separates them. So this is the first bedroom on the east side of the house. And this is the other portion.
There were always rooms there, but he did them over. Like he turned them into bedrooms. Yeah.
Okay. And that's the front part. Next. And then we go back down the hallway.
Yep, that hallway always creeped. I hated that hallway.
Well,
We hated
Missy in our group had some interesting experiences.
Okay. What did you guys get here during our?
She saw something in that. Missy saw something in that hallway. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it was something low, creeping,
Dark.
Across the floor,
Yes,
along the
like
floor.
slithering.
Yeah.
I was sorry.
Ivy's bright and stuff. It's all right.
Yeah, I used to feel that.
Yep, that hall.
It was like we were in the room and she could see it in the hallway. So
Yep, I believe that completely. Like
Alright.
mangled looking.
Well, she said it was low to the floor. I remember her saying something was crawling from one room to the other.
Kind of like a dog or something.
Yeah.
Like,
Something to that effect.
Yeah.
So, and then this is the second room, the second L-shaped room down there. Keep going. That's the wall that meets the bathroom. And this is the bedroom, which would be opposite the master bedroom, with the really weird bed that pops up. A little bit off-putting, but
Nothing to see here.
nothing to see
Forgot
here.
about that bed.
Next, this is the vanity. Now that was in that room, and it's actually turned toward the wall. And I'll talk about that here in a minute.
Yes, that was mine.
There's Melissa talking about what she said, what she saw. I saw the figure, and it looked right at me, creeping around the corner.
Yep, I hated that hallway, Melissa.
So this is the back bed. This is the back portion of the. This would be over the kitchen. Downstairs would be over the kitchen. And this is what John used as his brewing room. If you look through this picture, you can actually see there's still remnants of him of his home brewing beer stuff that he was
God,
doing
it's
there.
everywhere.
So that's that. Next, attic stairs.
So
attic.
we were going to turn that into an art studio, and I couldn't handle the noise or the feeling up there. So I just camped out down the stairs, like in the hallway.
Went upstairs at night, but
Mm-hmm.
Missy said, "Hi, Hannah." It was funny because she and the whatever she saw, the figure startled one another.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So there was
I remember her saying it sort of jumped back
when it noticed her looking at it.
Oh.
Now that she says that, I do remember that from that night. So this is the attic again. Moving through the attic. If you notice something in the attic, and this will become important when I tell my portion of the story for up here, there's no reflective surfaces up here. There's no reflective surfaces in the attic. Go ahead to the next slide. This is the portion of the attic that's over the brewing area and over the kitchen. You got to crouch down to walk back there. It's very claustrophobic. And then the basement. This is the last portion of the.
Good God.
I loved the basement. Like that was my place to go. But if you could tell, it's very Blair Witchy.
Yes, very Blair Witchy. That's how I used to describe it.
And you have water laying down there. So we got a couple of pictures of the basement. Next, this one's very important because you can see, and this is what I was talking about, right between the pillars. You can see those two pillars up front. That's one area. That's the front stoop. That's below the.
Yes.
That is below the foyer, and that's where we had a piece of equipment set up, and that's all kind of one block right there. Now, Chad, can we get out of the? We won't get into the next pictures. All right, so that was that. We did that. I went and I got pictures. Walked around the house, and it was just an intense feeling for me being there.
Very intense.
And I'm not sensitive at all.
Yeah.
I don't react real dramatically one way or another when it comes to seeing equipment going off or seeing anything like that. But I had a very uneasy feeling when I was there. And so I took all these pictures and I sent them to the group, and everybody had a chance to look at them. And everybody was very excited to actually go and get a chance to investigate this place. So now it came time to actually come here and have our interview, face-to-face interview with Hannah. So Jerry and Melissa and myself, beginning of October, came and we sat down and we just went through everything from beginning to end.
Right.
And it looked almost cathartic for you to get it all out.
Yeah, I mean, I like this house will never leave me. Like it's I'm probably gonna have to write about it or something. It's just a part of me now, like it or not. Even in the state it's in, I still those pictures make me very sad. You know, we'd always hope to like restore it, you know. But yes, it was very validating to hear that, you know, you guys found so much, because I literally thought I was losing my mind.
Right. And this is where, you know, we got the story. Ivy came in and she, you know, she relayed her stories about Gertie. And you told us the story. That's when we first got the story about your dad seeing the hooded figure and validating what you had seen.
He validated it without knowing. I had never told anyone because I was worried. I mean, at that point, I had a colicky baby. I was living in a house that was pretty loud. I wasn't sleeping well. And now I'm seeing like hooded figures in my bedroom. Like I was worried about my own mental state.
Right.
So when he said, "Hey, there's a dark figure that sits like in the front of your house," I was like, "Oh, okay, so that's real."
So one of the things that we got from the interview was the fact that the house, we assessed that the house tends to target women, target
Yes.
females,
Yes,
and
definitely.
it seems to negatively affect the disposition and the personalities of the males
Yes.
in the house.
I got these photos really quick from a person on a forum in the town who used to live there. And she relayed to me that it was the same situation with her mother and father, that mother hated the house and felt that it picked on her, and her dad loved it. And that was the case with the people that we bought the house from also. So it was definitely a pattern.
And I felt the Drew men. Like I felt
Yep.
the draw of it for years, not knowing, you know, and then to present it and have two of the other guys in the group have felt it. What I felt was
Right.
being drawn
It's
toward
like a
it.
siren.
Yeah, and it was something else. Now it was also used. Part of the history that we skipped, the third floor. What was the third floor used for?
The third floor, actually, you can't see it in this picture because the fire had already happened. But there was actually a third floor, and the third floor was used for dances and stuff. It was originally built as a summer home. So they had parties up there with music and everything. And then at some point, I want to say I don't remember the timeline, if it was like the turn of the century, but there was a fire upstairs. And then they had to like take off that third floor. So it was just 2 floors then at that point with the attic.
But if you go back and you look at the pictures that we've taken, you can look at the floorboards and the beams in the attic floor, and you can still see that they're charred.
Yes.
Like you still have
singed.
and you can still smell the char up there.
Yep.
So, and it was at that point that after that, one of the things that we have learned through our experiences, with offsites and such, especially like when we went to the tannery. You guys went to the tannery the first time. Now the tannery was where we broadcast from last time. So when you guys went to the tannery the first time, one of the biggest takeaways was that everybody felt that something was there, but it didn't know how to communicate because nobody had investigated there, and we had to go back with the equipment again. So I decided to take it upon myself to go with a friend of mine, her name is Sunny, to this house again and take some common pieces of equipment. We took a REM pod. She has a REM pod just like yours, Justin. REM pod, we had recorders, we had cat balls, we had flashlights, of course, flashlight, and
But you didn't have enough batteries, did you?
well, no, we didn't have the battery issue in the first time. So we went the first time, and we got there, and the sun's down, and we had coordinated it with you, and we coordinated it I told Chris, and Chris told John. Well, apparently, as Sonny and I are walking through with our flashlights, because there's no power to the house. I have to stress that. There's no power and there's no water. So any of the K2 activity or whatever that we got was true, because there was nothing throwing anything as long as we were away from our cell phones. So that's a definite plus. So we were walking through, and we were doing a tour of the first floor the first time, and we came back through, and we kind of went backward versus the pictures that we showed. We were walking back into the living room, and I saw a dog coming through the door right before John kicked the door in and wanted to know what the hell we were doing in there. And I bowed up ready to fight. I'm yelling my realtor's name like it was a battle cry. I'm like, Christina's told us we could be here. And he's like, oh, you're the ghost people? I'm like, yeah. He's like, carry on. And but he had his, I guess, girlfriend with him. Her name was Anya. His fiance, Anya. And we had, she had come through. Now, I mentioned that because when Anya was speaking to us about the house, she relayed stories about a woman in white who was very active on the main staircase. And she said that she would she would hear the same stories that she experienced from other women that lived in that house different times. Always the same story, different people telling her stuff. And she was very uncomfortable there. She was visibly uncomfortable there. And so they came through, and eventually, they did what they wanted to do, showed us around a little bit, and then they took off. So Sonny and I spent about 3 hours there. We went from like 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. We got a lot of cat ball activity and I didn't realize that your bedroom, I thought the bedroom off of the foyer, which was yours, I didn't know it was yours. I thought it was just another like sitting room. When I just thinking about it, when I got told that it was a child's bedroom, I automatically think bedrooms are upstairs, and I didn't put two and two together. So I, without thinking, put a cat ball in between the two windows as just a static piece of equipment as we walked around. And we spent a lot of the time in your bedroom, in the back bedroom.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of REM pod activity in that back bedroom, and a lot of flashlight activity, a lot of flashlight responses, a lot of cat ball responses on the windowsills from the corner where
Yeah, those windows have a real vibe.
Right. And it was, and the house is structurally sound. So like everything going by on the highway right there doesn't affect the house, but it very much like being on those windowsills, whatever is there enjoys that stuff. And it was able to negotiate the REM pod, and we had the REM pod in the door to the bathroom and the cat balls and the flashlight. And the funny part, and when I mentioned about the disposition change, and I mentioned about how it negatively affects, when Sunny would ask questions, she would get a response. When I would ask questions, I would get nothing. And I found myself getting angry about it. And that's not my personality. That's not my disposition. That's not my personality. And there was a time when I had to kind of step back and be like, calm down, relax,
Right.
kind of recenter and figure out what's going on. And then like the cat ball kept going off in what was your room. And it was between the two windows, which is where the mirror hung. And I had no idea that's the case. There's just, when we were there was those long pieces of, or boxes with like flooring and stuff stacked up. And that's where we stacked it up. But that was a little bit of the activity. But most of the activity that we got that night was on the staircase. We took the REM pod and we put it up on the first landing. And it would go off. The proximity and the temperature stuff would just go off.
The temperature, I remember that staircase was so cold.
It was
like a meat locker.
There were variances everywhere, and you would get these responses. And there's videos that we'll have on our web or our Facebook that has them at 5-10 minutes of us just getting constant stuff through it.
I believe that.
We didn't really get a whole lot in the upstairs, maybe in the master bedroom, a little bit of K2 activity, some question and answer stuff, and then not a whole lot in the attic. So that was the end of the initial. What I wanted to do was I wanted to familiarize myself with the house. I wanted to familiarize the house with the equipment that we were going to use. That way, when we came back with the same kind of equipment and maybe a little bit more advanced stuff, we were a little bit more, whatever was there would be comfortable communicating. So we took off, we ended that investigation, and that was that. Then we came back and we put everything together for the October 22nd investigation, which was the big one. Now, when we went, we had 9 of us, and it was 3 teams of 3 people, 2 males and a female on each team. So we wanted to make sure we had a female on each team, and we wanted to make sure that nobody was ever alone. We also had safety protocols in place where if you felt stressed or you felt like like something bad was happening, that you could fall back. We would determine if you were going to continue on or not. And the ground rules were set, and they were very clear. So we got there, and the teams were myself and Chris and Kelly Miller, the Maven Medium. She's a friend of the group, and she went with us. So she was in my group. This group 2 was Melissa and Jerry and Chad. And group 3 was Justin and Courtney and Andrew. So we split up 3 different levels of the house. The first thing we did was we showed up at 5 o'clock, so we had a little bit of time and a little bit of daylight.
Mm-hmm.
And
because there's no power.
Because there's no power, and we didn't want to have to do everything by flashlight. So we wanted to set up some of our static equipment first. So we went down the basement first, and we set up a lot of our higher end stuff down there. We had a motion detector down there, the little coffin one that plays the AC/DC song. We had the Jerry has a new piece of equipment, pair of binoculars, IR lenses, so on and so forth. And you set them up with a bunch of lasers. And so we set that up. We had trail cam down there, and then the laser grid in the front portion of where I pointed out the front part of the stairs. So that was the basement. Downstairs, we had cat balls set up, REM pods. We had a Phasma box with us as well, but that stayed on the first floor. We had motion detectors upstairs. I don't think we really set anything static up in the second and third floors. So After that, and after we got our initial walk through the place, so we had you, we had Kelly, and we had Missy, and the tree. The tree became really big because there was a lot of energy.
Yes, that tree, I
When it came
remember
to the tree, there were elements that thought that there may be something very old and elemental attached to that tree. Something very old, not anything necessarily threatening, but more kind of majestic, and wants you to know that it's there, you know, and just kind of respect it.
Yeah.
I felt a lot of sorrow around that.
Yeah.
tree. Like,
I didn't like that side of the house. I remember that.
And that was the tree that was right outside of your
That was
bedroom
the tree
window.
That was right outside my bedroom window. Yeah.
So that was a tree. And who was it that got that kept getting a kid out there? Like, was it Kelly that kept feeling the kid in the tree? I think it might have been, because it might have been my group that we were trying to coax it out on. And so, you know, the tree became a focal point, but we didn't do much outside just because it's incredibly dark. The neighbors might be a little eccentric, so you don't want to wander onto their property.
Yeah.
And so we and there's a barn, but the barn is very structurally
The barn is not
unsound.
structurally sound. I used to go explore in it, and I would get yelled at by the former owner.
So we definitely stayed away from the barn.
The floor was like just about to collapse.
All right. So when it came to females and women being there, Courtney, your initial feelings when it came to the house?
What I remember from the first walkthrough, the two things that really stood out: going into your bedroom, pressure on my chest,
Yes.
just like this heavy
That's crazy.
pressure.
Yeah.
And then going up the stairs, and I didn't get it all night, but on the initial walkthrough, we walked up the stairs, landing. As soon as you hit the top of the stairs, it was like ice cold, and my entire body was tingling. I felt like I was high or something.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it was the strangest, like disorienting.
Yeah, I remember that. Like just opening that door, I could feel the air.
Yeah,
just
it hit you like a
talking
ton of
about it.
bricks.
Yep, hit you in the face. It was Arctic. Yep. But I guess when I moved into that house, I was becoming sensitive. Like I guess you could say psychically, although I don't think of myself that way at all. But I was definitely, by the time I left that house, I was very aware of how to read energy in a room and objects and things like that. And that's things that this house taught me.
Yeah.
Like I didn't, looking back, like I should have known that staircase had something on it. I just remember feeling like I didn't like it. And it made me feel very uncomfortable.
Yes.
I think if I went back now, I would read the whole place very, very differently. I never would have moved there, like knowing what I know now. But we were really young. But that staircase. There was something else I was gonna. The chest thing.
Mhm.
I had a really weird episode when we lived there, where I felt like I was having a heart attack one night, or it was like really early in the morning before school. And they actually had to rush me to the hospital. And like, I thought I was like having a heart attack, and it was an anxiety attack. I'd never had one before.
I had one there too.
Okay.
Like recent, like a year or so ago. I had like a really bad panic attack in there.
Did you feel it like in your chest area?
Oh, the
That's
whole
weird that
time.
you felt that.
Yeah, the whole time I'm like ever in there, I always get like a heavy chest feeling. I just thought it was like because of my trauma stuff, but like now it's like other people feeling it. I'm like, oh.
No, and I didn't realize the picture that you took at the end of the bed. That's where the hood. I was standing right there.
So a lot of this stuff that you're hearing tonight, we're probably going to go long tonight, so just bear with us. But a lot of the stuff that you're hearing tonight is actually going to be the first time you're hearing it, and sharing stuff
Very exciting.
that the rest of us haven't heard. So, Justin, what did you think the first time you walked through?
Through the first walkthrough,
Yeah.
I was just excited to be there from just the initial conversation. Excuse me, and the picture. I was drawn to this place. I grew up right up the road, not far from there, and I spent a lot of time going to my grandfather's and driving up and down 11 and 15. So like I was familiar with the place. So I can't say I felt anything like negative during the initial walkthrough. I was just excited to get it started.
Okay. So we got there and we set everything up, and then we went to dinner, grounded, did the whole thing, and then came back, and it was time to start the investigation. So my group was the first one on the first floor. You guys were on the second floor, correct?
We were in the attic.
Or you were in the attic first. You guys were on the second floor. Group 2 was on the second floor in the first session. So the first session for me on the first floor started out kind of slow. We had the Phasma box. We didn't have the Phasma box turned on yet. And all the energy and all the focus ended up being in that back bedroom. So I had a flashlight set up in the back corner, a cat ball, REM pod, and eventually we took the Phasma box. And I actually went to set up the music box, motion detector in that back room with the eye pointed toward the corner. All of a sudden, once we started, Chris and I heard a beeping, beep, 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 beep. We couldn't figure out what it was. And I walked into the foyer and I looked down through the floor and I could see that the laser grid that we had set up downstairs was flashing. And that's one of Jerry's pieces of equipment that I don't know much about when it comes to rigging it up and all that. And so I went upstairs and got Jerry out of the second floor and had him go downstairs with me to take a look at it. So we went down and we identified it. And the first thing that Jerry pointed out was that it had changed. It was changed. When we had it set up, it was north and south and east and west. When we went down there, the only thing that was blinking was the east and west. So the north and south. And he, flat out said the only way that would change is if somebody pushed the button to turn that off like that. Otherwise, it would just flash north and south as well. So that was the first kind of anomaly that we identified.
Yeah.
And he had checked those batteries the night prior.
Yeah.
And
of course.
he had, we had fresh batteries and everything. And that becomes important here in the beginning because those batteries were dead. So we had to go change those batteries out.
Mm-hmm.
We changed the batteries out and they were, the grid was fine. And Jerry returned back to the second floor. Well, I went we were set up in the back bedroom and we were trying to, draw something out, make kind of contact with them. We were getting some flashlight activity and some cat ball activity on the windowsills. But what I noticed about the music box is I couldn't get the music box to get set up. Like that purple light on the back of it, when it shows that the eye is working, it would just continue to flash. I couldn't figure out why it was flashing. Again, fresh battery in, stuck it to my tongue, dead. Dying, dead, replaced the battery, and it I don't know if it worked all the way through a second one, or I think maybe I cut it off in the middle of the second one because I just could not get it to stay constant. Took it out of the room and it was fine. And so I honestly believe that whatever we were in contact with didn't enjoy the fact that, or didn't understand or enjoy the fact that we were able to detect movement, that we were able to detect motion. And I kind of felt like we were dealing with something that was killing the batteries because it didn't want, to be known that it was moving around. And so once we got that, Kelly started feeling like it wasn't something, like we weren't dealing with whatever was in the tree. That was attached to the tree. I got the feeling that she got the feeling that we were dealing with something that was invited there. Like something was invited there. Somebody brought something, like either did something or brought something there.
I believe
and
that. I think so.
That was very much the focus of a lot of Kelly's questions when it came to what we were asking out there. And we would get some responses. And, it's funny, as Chris is not a paranormal investigator like the rest of us were. So to see his responses to a flashlight turning itself on and off, with nobody around, or a cat ball going off with nobody around was, it was interesting. It was a lot of fun. And we ended up with, when we turned the Phasma box on, we ended up with 5 distinct voices. We ended up with,
That's like the dream I told you I had.
Right. And Kelly's the one that had said that there seemed to be 5 distinct people that we were talking to, or spirits that we were talking to. There was a kid.
Yep.
There was at least one female, a couple of males, and somebody had been injured out at the tree. And kind of the off-putting spot for me was when we were trying to, because as you do, you try to make a connection, some common ground, try to draw out some more activity. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, so, were you the little boy, did you get hurt in the tree? Because she kept getting the little boy in the tree. I'm like, did you get hurt in the tree? I was like, I fell out of the tree as a kid. I busted my arm up real bad. And then the next picture that came up on the Phasma box was a Roman soldier holding his right arm out. And it was weird for me because I'm retired from the Army. I'm a retired soldier. And when I fell out of the tree, when I said I had fallen out of the tree, I totally destroyed my right arm when I was about 12 years old. And I tried to draw some more out with that, but then all of a sudden it went quiet. And it just seemed like there was something dominant that would kind of allow stuff to happen and then stop.
It was
And then allow something to happen and then stop it.
Messing with you.
And Kelly felt it was very much like a misdirection. Like, okay, we're going to do this over here, so you don't look over here.
That's what it was like living there, though. Living there was like that. Like nothing would work properly. I would lose things. It was just like a constant,
Yeah.
It was like every day was like a battle.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to explain it.
So that was like the my first experience down there. We got some good stuff through the Phasma box, and with the cat balls and the flashlights. Now you guys had the pretty intense activity up in the attic, right?
Yes, we
All
had
right,
a lot going on in the attic.
So while you tell that, I'm going to step out for 1 second. So go ahead and tell your story.
Okay. So yeah, we were up in the attic. I actually didn't feel as uncomfortable in the attic as I felt on other floors of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So we had the REM pod a little bit in that area that you kind of have to duck down to get back into, kind of above the brewery.
Yeah,
Right.
I crawled back in that hole, put the REM pod,
Oh, wow.
and we didn't get much out of it. So we brought everything back to where the old kegs were.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the REM pod, flashlight, and cat ball. And that's where we got most of our consistent responses.
We really like the cat ball.
Okay.
We didn't get much out of the REM pod. It was all the flashlight and the cat ball. We're pretty sure we were talking to two different people.
Mhm.
We had the SLS cameras set up.
Okay.
And multiple times we had two
There
different
were-
figures that were interacting.
Wow.
The biggest thing that they like talking to her.
Yeah, it would respond in the attic. It responded more to my questions and me talking than to him in the teacher room.
Okay.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, but there was one sort of tone of conversation where we think, we're asking, were you a neighbor? Did you stop by for the dances? And it would kind of light up, and they like to drink beer, and they wanted us to bring them a beer. And then the second kind of side of the investigation was more like almost Native American roots to the land.
Absolutely. I sensed that, that was one of the first things. My old journals, I would write I think this was a burial ground or some sort of village was here. It was right on the Susquehanna, and there were all those Susquehanna villages.
Yeah.
And, they were brutalized by the settlers and stuff. So there was so much violence that happened along that area.
Yeah.
That resonates with me very much.
Yeah.
So
Ivy
Mike-
had something too.
Yeah, my aunt went on a spiritual retreat, and she went over there and felt all of that. Jenny did.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
we were talking about it when we went to the whiskey.
Well, looks like we have a comment there as well. That wonder what the history of this area is. Land spirits is it built over an old burial ground? Did an old battle or bloodshed occur on that? That supports everything you think.
Yeah, and the area was very active during the Revolutionary and the Civil War.
Mm-hmm. Yep, those woods.
In that area. Plus, the canals across were built using migrant workers.
Right.
Brought in
Right.
from back in those days. Would have been brought in from Asia or brought in
Right.
for and they were not treated terribly well either.
No.
So you have all that.
He has a railroad.
The railroad,
also, which they built a lot of the railroads.
And a lot of those river towns, a lot of those disconnected towns.
Right.
Were kind of self-governing back then in those days.
Right.
You
Wild
didn't have a
and
lot.
crazy.
Yeah, it was kind of like the Wild West along the river,
Right.
and so you had, very likely may have had, the country justice, out
Right.
there with if you had a hanging tree or something.
We had they had a hanging tree in that town,
There
definitely.
were multiple suicides on the road too. Remember that kid you were talking about?
Yeah. I figured out. after I lived there for a couple years, I figured out the reason it felt so claustrophobic, and I'm talking more about the land around it, not just necessarily the house, was you have the river in front of the house, and then behind it is this wild like mountain land. So you're kind of like hemmed in into this little area, and you have to do all your living along this weird strip, but everything else is like crazy nature and
Well, the game lands are right back there.
yeah,
at
the
the top of
game
that mountain.
lands. So you're dealing with like it literally gives you like a caged type of feeling, and it's very subconscious. It took me a while to figure out that's what it is that makes me feel so, stuck or whatever. It's
Right.
you can't really you're in a cattle chute along that area.
Well, that was the first session. Then we broke, and we came back down once the end came back down. We shared our experiences, took a break, and then we moved on to the second. So everybody kind of shifted. My group went to the second floor. Chad's group went to the attic, and you guys came down to the first floor.
Yes.
And that's where your intense interactions happened.
Mhm.
So I'll say from my point of view, the second floor was not incredibly active, with the exception of the main bedroom. We sat there. We got a lot of flashlight activity out of the first L room on that side, and we just had some call and answer, maybe some cat ball activity in that main room, but we didn't have a whole lot. We didn't see anything up on like Missy did, or in any of the rooms that we went to. We had the music box go off a couple of times in the hallway. So there was some motion in the hallway that we couldn't explain, but that was really the end, the kind of the long and the short of it for us on that second floor. Third floor, you guys, I don't think you guys got much of anything up on the third floor.
No, that's Jerry started getting agitated up there. I think that's at the point in the night where a lot of the guys were starting to have that agitated
Temper,
frustrated that things weren't happening.
yes.
So
Yeah, Missy said the second session was in the attic, and it was pretty quiet up there. Now let's talk about the first floor and you guys.
So we
And this is gonna be
started
the
in the
first time you
back
hear this.
bedroom, and we had flashlights, your REM pod, and the Phasma box. And so Andrew was kind of over on the closet side. Jay was sitting on the bed,
Right.
and I was sitting like of the doors walking through that wall. I was sitting on the floor with my back to that wall, and I had the Phasma box on the floor next to me. And we started to ask some questions, and I think at some point we thought we heard like "get out" or something, and I started to feel that pressure on my chest.
Yep.
Very clearly through the Phasma box, it said "get out or I'll make you." I felt the pressure even harder on my chest, and I was like, "And I'll be in the living room." So then he had the rest of the activity because I was not in the room. I couldn't breathe.
Whatever was in there ran her out. And then I was just trying to kind of narrow down and ask, like, hey, do you want me here? And I was sitting on the bed, and it started
Oh my gosh.
definitely responded to my REM pod. I was like, are you happy with me being in here? It started beeping. I'm like, do you want me to leave? Beep, beep, beep. So I get up and leave. We also had the flashlight set up on the windowsill,
Right.
which was going off with this. And then I think at one point I had Andrew leave, or I think maybe
You were in there. You're both in there alone separately.
yeah. So I was in there by myself for a while, talking to my REM pod, and I was like, "Do you want me to leave too?" And it was like, "Beep." So then I come out, and I was like, "Andrew, you go in there, sit down, and basically repeat what I just did." And the same thing happened to him, and it was pretty cool. It felt crazy in there too. Like it got pretty. I sat in there by myself for a little bit. It was definitely heavy.
It's very
Whatever
intense.
we were interacting with, it was
It's very one time so one of the things I would do to kind of like deal with some of the anxiety I had was I really got into gardening. And I used to go outside and like just like I planted a lot of like ground cover there and everything. And one day I was outside and I was planting, I can't remember if it was like begonias or something. And I am leaning over the flower bed, and all of a sudden I felt this extremely heavy presence just like kind of like pass through me. And I got so intensely sad that I actually screamed.
Wow.
And that
Yeah.
I've never experienced anything like that ever again. It didn't make any sense. It sounds crazy even talking about it right now. But I literally, it was like despair as a person came and stood next to me and like stood there while I was like trying to put my little flowers in the flower bed.
Mhm.
And I became like totally overcome with like, I don't know, I can't even describe it. It was just like so much darkness. And I ran in my room and I like laid in bed and cried with like the covers over my head.
Hmm.
And then I came to find out later that somebody actually killed themselves, like not far from like that area of the garden.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there was also like there's like a lot of dead animals there. Like Hazel.
Yeah.
We had a dog, her name was Hazel, and I think that she died in that room.
Hmm.
Like I'm pretty sure she died in that room. And like they also had like goats like off the side of that room that are all dead. Like he had them like recently and they're all dead.
Yeah, that room is intense. The other like pattern, which I didn't know about, you know, your equipment dying, at least at that point, but after we came out, you know, we were just talking about, let's get the SLS, let's set up the laser. You know, we had so much going on. It was like, let's try something else. And as soon as we came out, SLS is dead. Laser grid's dead.
Oh,
Yeah.
we had the
All-
laser grid up.
All
It's
dead.
a swirling, sucking,
Yeah.
like there's something sucking energy down into the ground in that back part of the house.
Well, you had warned when it came to people that were sensitive or anything like that you would feel drained, that you can only spend so much time there.
Yep, I had a friend that she used to come visit me, and we'd be sitting on the couch. She'd be like, "I just have to leave. I can't. I feel like I'm being drained right now." And I guess I was used to it enough where like I just kind of was like, okay, but yeah, it's like something is just pulling.
Well, I'll be honest. I don't even think I've shared this with the team. Is when I got home that night, I ended up kind of having like a little angry.
He was crabby.
Yeah,
Like a meltdown.
I thought
I
you were
would-
going to make him take a shower on a.
I wouldn't say
on some
meltdown.
like a
I
rock
was-
salt.
He said he didn't need it. I did sage him.
you know what I mean?
did
Like,
say-
Yeah,
I don't know what, but yeah, it was something just
You're mad about everything.
when I got home it was
Well, and
Yeah,
it's
I had a little
and
bit of
that's a running thing. Like,
well, no, we
I felt
discussed it.
You know,
we discussed it, but I
Yeah.
didn't.
It's like rage.
Woke up the next morning and we talked about it. He was like, "Wow, I don't know why I was that mad."
Right.
'Cause I had a blast, but as soon as I got home,
Right. Well, we saw it in a couple of different people getting, you know,
Very
agitated.
Angry.
Maybe not angry, but at least agitated, and over stuff they wouldn't normally. Like when I was there the first time,
Right.
I wouldn't normally get agitated that somebody else was getting, you know, responses, and I'm not.
It
You know,
emotionally manipulates.
that's what it seemed like. And when you talked about the SLS dying and the what was the other thing? The SLS and
The
we
laser
had
grid.
The laser
fully
grid.
charged laser. We didn't even use it.
When I had like 20 new cat balls and I think 2 of them worked.
right. But you're just talking again. You're talking about stuff that can detect motion. And what
Yeah.
I think that we had because I don't think anybody's third session yielded anything. I know the attic was just absolutely dead quiet.
No, we were on the
I could not
second
handle
level.
that room with the bed.
Right?
I left it.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Did you not?
No, I have no idea about this. portion.
So, what's up, Ivy?
Like 2 years ago, like my dad and his ex-girlfriend got into like a really bad fight, and she was like screaming for help
Mhm.
from that room.
Wow.
Yeah, there's very
That-
intense, angry,
Yeah.
and it moves through the house and then it's gone.
So we were in that room. Jay went and sat on the bed. Andrew was kind of next to it, and then I was kind of in the corner. And the first thing I said when we got up there is, out of the corner of my eye, super fast across the window, dark, but not
Yeah, I
like, not a
forgot
bat.
about
It was
that.
not a solid mass, but it was dark enough that it went. And I was like, "What the is that?"
Because even Andrew saw it, and I was like, "Are we seeing shit?"
So then,
It moved
We-
across the front windows.
it was the back window over the basement. It went super fast out of it, and it scared the crap out of me. And so then we were standing there facing the door, and we could see the black mass kind of come in, and it's got white trim around it. You could see it darken over it here, and it was starting to grow. But then I was seeing things coming around this way. So I started in the corner, but by the end of it, I was like practically sitting on Andrew's shoulders because I was like creeping away from it. And I got to the point where I was like, I can't be here anymore, and I don't want to walk through that door by myself. And so Andrew walked me
So
out
they
down the
left.
hall.
Yeah, I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of like,
Which door was that again? The door
That was the bedroom with the bed, the hanging
Suspended
bed.
yeah, we didn't get any like equipment hits up there. No flashlights, no REM pod.
Did you get REM pod when you were by yourself in there though?
No, I don't think so. After they left, I was like, I'm just gonna sit in here in the dark by myself for a little bit.
And then we went down the hall, the other L-shaped room on the other side of the house from it. We got some flashlight, and I think your REM pod might have gone off once in there.
Yeah, maybe once, but that was.
Then we were kind of done.
We didn't get much
done.
equipment hits.
David, that was the session where Melissa, Jerry, and I did an Estes method. So I don't know if you want to go into the Estes method a little bit, but then I can.
Okay, well, so we have. Did you do the halo, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have. It's a combination of the Estes and the Gansfield, and so effectively, it's sensory deprivation. You're blindfolded. You have the white noise generator in your ears, and you're listening past the white noise to see what comes through, to see what presents itself. And sometimes you get some, sometimes you get nothing, sometimes it's incredibly intense because you're opening a door and you're just welcoming whatever's going to come through. So you said you all did that in that session?
Yeah, I was the one who was listening, had the blindfold and the headphones on. Jerry and Melissa were in another room asking questions, so I don't know what they were asking. I didn't hear anything, but I actually got visions of black and white visions of fire. Now, we talked about that there was a fire in there, and you mentioned earlier how the black and white just seems to bring out that house more in photos and stuff.
Yeah, yes,
So the
very
fact that I
much.
was getting black and white visions of fire just sort of was interesting.
Wow, that's amazing.
That also I forgot that when I was in the attic that I had basically like a hot flash session where I felt like it was cold out and I had to take I felt like I was on fire, and I had Andrew check my temperature and it was like 90 something degrees or something.
The rest of us are registering like 70.
Yeah, they're like freezing.
He was sweating and
it
red.
It like hit me in like a wave, and I'm like, yo, I'm like burning up, and then it went away. And Andrew even had a small session like that too, where he was like, man, now I'm burning up. So yeah, I don't know.
Melissa
That
said they
correlates
were
with the
asking about
fire?
fire.
Huh?
Yeah, Missy said that they were asking about fire in their session. So we all know that we've seen we can see the pictures here.
Yeah, I mean, we were asking about it too during our question.
So that was I didn't realize that your third session was that intense because we were in the attic. Like we got nothing in the attic. We found one anomaly in the attic, light anomaly when I was taking pictures. That was about it. And that was also before the third session is when I had to go down, when I went down to the basement and I took the picture. So can you cut to the next picture? So this was the basement as it stood. It was dark. So the four lasers, the four red lights you see on the left are the laser from Jerry's binoculars and the IR light. So
I need some of those.
on the right-hand side, the green ball you see in the middle, that's where the grid, the laser grid comes out of, and it's lit up in the middle right there. And it's across. You can see where it comes up and down and right and left. All right, so I took 3 pictures. Excuse me. I'm crouched in the corner. I took 3 pictures in rapid succession. Here's the first picture, and then here's the second picture. And then out of nowhere in the third picture, you end up with that red.
That's so
dot.
weird.
It's not much, but it was noticeable. Yeah. It was noticeable the night that I was there.
Is that the side that the tree is on?
No,
okay.
No, this is from the power box. So I'd be over by the
driveway,
under the driveway. Yeah.
Okay.
So, or I'd be under the living room right there. So
okay.
And that's there's no reason. Nothing had changed between those 3 pictures other than that red dot showing up out of nowhere. Don't know what it is. Don't know where it came from. There was nothing that would there was nothing that would have actually caused it, because the lasers from the binoculars were pointed the other direction. There was nothing. And I was a good 2 feet. I couldn't reach the binoculars from where I was taking the picture from. So that was the one photographic piece of evidence. There's a second set of 3 from the attic where you see the paralights in it for scale, but you have 2 pictures of the paralight. And in the third picture, there's a white light to the left, like just a white dot to the left out of nowhere. But it was those were the only 3 like pieces of photographic evidence that I pulled out, and I didn't find those until I was going. Well, I identified that almost immediately. The other one took a little bit of looking, scrolling on the pictures. So then after the third session, it was starting to get late. Everybody came downstairs, and we felt like we wanted to have one group session in the bedroom with all of us, because it became kind of a consensus that whatever we were dealing with,
it was playing you against each other.
well, it even so much, not so much that in my idea, but like it might have been confused because it was used to being able to manipulate and harass the women that were there. And I don't think it understood what to do when you had 3 very strong-willed women that weren't afraid of it, that were there, number one. Number two, you had 9 people there that were seeking it out, that weren't trying to live in the room despite it, and I honestly don't think it knew what to do. Like if I had to, the Dave audio from the what's Missy's last?
Do you want me to be responding to some of these comments?
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm while you're
Okay, so the
while
audio
you're talking.
The audio from the binocular videos had scratching and shuffling. The IR note wasn't turned on at the time. Okay. So we had some scratching and shuffling down there that we don't know what it was. I mean, scratching and shuffling could have been, some wildlife. It might have been wildlife, although there was no wildlife identified in the house. But we do know there were some snakes running around out there somewhere because we found multiple snake skins. And we had this group that we wanted to go into the bedroom, and that's when we all went in there.
I did not. I stood outside. I was spent. And not going back into that bedroom.
Yeah.
So Courtney tapped out. She's like, I'm done.
Dead.
Missy and Jerry didn't come. Jerry was packing up, and Missy was out there with him. So it was Chris and myself and Justin and Chad and Andrew and Kelly. And Kelly was there. And that was when we got all the responses from, like, we had the cat balls that wouldn't stop going off on the windowsill, the flashlight, your REM pod kept going off. And do you remember anything in particular from that last session?
Nothing other than just what you said.
No? Do you remember anything stick out from that last session? It was a lot of the same. It was a lot of trying to get verification of, were you brought here, the kid, the female voice, whatever. We just kept going over it again. It lasted about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And then we cut it. And then that was it. Everybody was drained by that point. Like there was nobody that wanted to stay any longer.
The other weird thing we had, remember my car window?
Oh, that's right. Go ahead, Chad. Tell us about that. Yeah, his car window outside. I completely forgot about that.
I forgot about it until we just started talking. My car window it's a weird curved glass. It's sort of shallow in the middle and it's humped out. But it was really damp that night, so there was a lot of moisture buildup on the outside.
Yeah,
of the car
with the river there,
With the river.
definitely.
There was a pattern on the back of my car window that was like circles, and I couldn't I took a picture, but because of
my
how dark
God.
it was, it's not a real good picture, so it wasn't worth sharing. But because of the way they were drawn and the way the glass is curved, it's not like the water would have run down to create them, because they were literally like
Loops, yeah.
loops.
Yeah.
Like kind of like a painting.
Like a vortex, like a.
No, it was just multiple. It was like somebody walked by and did this on his back window. Like it was somebody was drawn on his back window, but there was nobody. There was nobody out there. Obviously.
Did it look like it could be like Native American patterns drawn?
I wouldn't put that much. All I saw was 3 circles.
Yeah.
Like,
It was
that's-
very intentional.
Yeah,
Whatever
it wasn't a
was
mistake.
put there.
Yeah.
So it was just another interesting thing that happened
that we forgot about, even just talking about getting to there, was the GPSs. Nobody's GPS wanted to work. I didn't need GPS because this was my third trip out there. I knew exactly where it was, but finding it was difficult because if you drove past it, if you missed it, you're going 10 miles out of your way. And so like I put out like a rake with a big white sheet on it, trying to catch everybody's attention to get us there. But on our way out there, I mean, Jerry and Missy missed it, and they ended up getting lost. And I couldn't understand how in a era of GPS somebody got lost. But they were having trouble. There were at least 2 or 3 people that had difficulty with their GPSs trying to find this place, and for no reason. It wasn't like there was, and it was the obstacles getting there too. There were multiple obstacles. The bridge, we had to go over a bridge to get out into the area, and the bridge was blocked. You ended up there was an accident. And you had to detour through the town if you wanted to get it, or take a complete, like when you guys came in, you had to go one exit down and come up on the other side of the river and then finally meet up with us. But until we got there, like it was, again, it felt like something, I don't want to attribute too much to it, but it really did. If it was a movie, it would have been something.
I was running late because of something, what I had going on before had run late. Like it was just
right.
Like all these things happening.
But it was like if it was a movie, it would be something you could attribute to something trying to keep us from going there.
Right.
And again, that was the first time I'd ever experienced anything like that.
Where it started before you even got there.
So that was the end of our of a very intense, a very long. There was a lot of there was a lot of research. There was a lot of time put into this, and then you received our deliverable. I gave you a report.
Yeah, that was great. That was amazing to have that.
And so like that's, you get, and eventually I'll attach all of our recordings and photographs and stuff like that. So it'll be a rather big file to share with you. But, when it comes to our offsite investigations and stuff like that, we wanted to deliver something to you and, with an assessment, we're not,
So
again,
would you say that this is a haunted house?
I would say that there is definite paranormal activity that occurs in the house.
Right.
Stuff that we can't explain.
See, I wasn't making it up.
But when it comes to that, I'm comfortable saying that there's a lot of stuff going on there that I can't explain, that none of us can explain.
Right.
And it was a very intense investigation, for all of us involved. And that was it for that. So hopefully we validated some of your stuff. Maybe we'll get a chance to go back.
Yeah, I would love to hear anything else that you guys find if you do go back. There's endless possibilities with that place. I'd love to do like a day at the historians or something and really like dig into everything that happened there, old newspapers and stuff. I mean, I have my hunches, but I've never gotten clarification on things like who actually built it and all of that.
Okay. So hopefully, we gave you a little validation, a little help, and we got a lot of stuff for our research and our quantification. So that's the end of that investigation. So we've got a couple of admin things to do real quick. We got a couple of investigations coming up. We have investigations at Boogie's Brewery, a public investigation on December 3rd, and public investigation on the 17th. Those are the last 2 for the year. There are still tickets available, so please, come on out, investigate with us. We have a lot of fun. We try to, we hope to get, have it as active as we can. Let's see.
Oh, nice.
Yep. So we got.
So where are you guys investigating next, other than the brewery?
We don't have anything set up into next year. We have a couple of some of the more famous haunted places that we're going to go to, and once we get our schedule hammered out for the whole of 23, we'll let everybody know, at some point or another. But we've got definitely have a couple of places on tap. We also have coming up in January, we have Daryl Marston from Ghost Adventures on A&E
wow.
coming out to us.
That's cool.
It's on A&E, right?
Ghost Hunters.
A&E's Ghost Hunters.
Mhm.
Daryl Marston's coming from Ghost Hunters. He's coming out, and we have 6 tickets left for that. That's going to be a big event. We have the celebrity investigator with us, so those are still available. They're available on the brewery's website and on ours. We have a link to it as well. And then tonight we're actually giving away we have our raffle drawing that we've completed. We're giving away a K2. We're giving away a Maglite flashlight, and we're giving away a K2, the Maglite, and a recorder for EVPs. And we selected our winner, and here he is. Ryan Yost of Hellertown, Pennsylvania. You've won all 3 items.
Woo.
So please Missy will get in contact with you. I don't have any of the information here, but she'll be certain to be in contact with you to get you squared away with all your prizes. And that's going to be it. Thank you guys for coming out. This has been a great location.
Yeah.
We were at the
Amazing location.
Metropolis Collective here in Mechanicsburg. It's right on the main street, downtown Mechanicsburg. It's tough to miss. There's a massive robot out front. You got a lot of art in the windows. Come on in. They have live events. They actually have an event tomorrow night here, right?
We have an event tomorrow night. We are featuring Oath and Hold Fast, 2 really great local bands. Can kick some butt. So that starts at 8:00.
And
I've been hearing things the whole night.
yeah, like there were a couple of bangs and
So
yeah.
They do their own.
The compressor on the fridge goes off every now and then.
Okay.
That's completely normal. If you're hearing other things, I would like to know what they are.
I saw something hazy here
What
too,
door?
because I actually thought he hit his face.
There were definitely
Almost like steps and creaks and.
yeah.
This building is also haunted.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
This is a totally different type of energy.
Yeah.
It's just like very busy.
And with that being said, thanks everybody for joining us. We had a good time. I thoroughly enjoyed sharing all this with you. It was a labor of love to do all this stuff. And don't forget, anything that we mentioned here tonight, doesn't imply anything violent, anything abusive or anything like that when it comes to stories that were told or anything of that nature. So please, when you listen to what we have, take it with you and make your own decision. All right. Well, thank you guys once again.